Hello everyone, Milan here. In this video, I'm going to be looking at the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate roster and putting my prediction on how likely a character is to return for a 6th installment of the Smash series. So, because with the success of Smash Ultimate and how long-running the franchise has been, it's pretty obvious that there's going to be another installment sometime soon. So, yeah, let's get into it. So, the categories I have here are 0 to 10% return, which are the ones that I think are the least likely, 11 to 30% return, which are a little bit more likely than 31 to 49, then 50%, which are those ones that I just think are 50-50, then 51 to 69 are the ones I think are a little bit higher than 50-50, 70 to 89 is a bit above that, 90 to 99 is it's likely that they're going to be in it, but there's a small chance they're out, 99.9% is it's extremely likely that they're going to be in, but I can't guarantee it, and guaranteed are the ones that I think are basically guaranteed to be in the next Smash game. And then the top three and then these last three tiers are for third-party characters. If the deal works, is ones which I think they definitely want to be in. It's just the deal might not work again. So, yeah. Might be cut are the third-party characters that I think are in a little bit of danger. But they might be in, but they might be out. And then the screwed third-party are the third-party characters which I think are likely to be removed. Anyway, now let's actually get into this. Starting off with the character that I think is the least likely to return, Pichu. Pichu started off the series as a joke character. You can see that when Pichu was added in, Melee. I get Melee and Brawl's names mixed up, so I just wanted to check. When Pichu was added in Melee, they didn't return for Brawl or Smash 4 after that because they were added to Melee as a joke character. They were a copy of Pikachu. Some of their moves were slightly stronger, but they also took damage for their moves. And they obviously returned for Smash Ultimate because they wanted everyone to be back. But Pichu is an unoriginal character from a franchise some people consider to be overrepresented. I don't think so. Like, the Pokemon franchise has had 480 million sales. It has 8 characters, which I think is reasonable. You know what else has 8 characters? Fire Emblem, a franchise which is 24 times less popular. So I think that there's probably going to be a few Pokemon representatives added, but some of them will probably be removed, and Pichu is definitely the most likely. The next most likely character to be removed, I would say, is Dr. Mario. Dr. Mario is a copy of Mario. None of his games were really that successful. His mobile game isn't even up anymore. They could change him into an Echo Fighter, but I feel like the best thing for him would either be being removed or just being added as a alternate costume for Mario, even if I'm pretty sure that they're actually separate characters. So, Dr. Mario was added in Melee, then didn't come back for Brawl, and weirdly enough was added back in Smash 4, and then was, of course, in Ultimate. But, yeah. The Mario franchise is obviously the most popular inside of Smash, with 826 million sales, but I don't think Dr. Mario is safe. I wouldn't say so at all. So, yeah. Next up on the chopping block is, where are they? Corrin. Fire Emblem already has a lot of characters, and Corrin just really isn't necessary. I don't even know anything about them. So, yeah. Then, another character who I think is on the chopping block here, Young Link. Young Link was added in Brawl, I believe, then cut in Melee and replaced by Toon Link, not in Smash 4, and then was only brought back for Ultimate because everyone was there. Like, don't get me wrong, I like Young Link as a character. They are my most played character in Smash Ultimate, but they're probably just going to be cut in favor of Toon Link because we really don't need 3 Links. So one or maybe even both of them are going to get cut, and Young Link is definitely the more likely option. They didn't even care about them enough to give them a unique Final Smash, just giving them the one that Link used to have, so Young Link might be done. Next one in this tier, Piranha Plant. They're a fun character, but once again, they were added as a joke character. And they're lovable, but I don't see them coming back. So, next in this tier is Wolf. Wolf has once again been cut before, like many of the other characters here. They're a villain from a franchise which isn't even really that popular. I mean, Star Fox has a decent amount of sales, but with 11.67 million, you can see that if you look at the statistics, it is one of the more overrepresented franchises. And Wolf is a liked character in Smash. Everyone was mad when he was cut before, but there's no reason that he should stay. And he does have a cool Easter egg with his final Smash when he's doing it on a member of Star Fox, but I feel like it would make more sense for, like, one of the other members of Star Fox to be in, or maybe even Crystal. I'm pretty sure that they were originally going to add Crystal, but it was a lot easier to add Wolf, so that's why Wolf ended up in Smash. I feel like Wolf is probably more likely to come back than the 5 I've listed before, but I wouldn't be betting on them returning. The second last character in this tier is Dark Pit. Dark Pit is Sakurai's baby, but the Kid Icarus franchise is one of the less popular in Smash, and with 3 representatives, it's the second most overrepresented in the entire thing. Dark Pit only exists because Pit just had a costume, and then they decided to make another Kid Icarus game, and and Dark Pit was inspired by that costume. Because they're an Echo Fighter, they're a lot easier to put in, which is why I'm putting them as more likely than the others. But I would be betting that Dark Pit is probably going to get removed. Speaking of Echo Fighters, we have Lucina. Lucina was added in Smash 4 and is now a Echo to Marth. Lucina isn't a very popular character and could honestly just be added as a skin for Marth instead of their own distinct character. And another character, and they were only added before Chrom because I don't know. But they wanted to add Chrom more, and that's why Chrom is in it now. So, I would say besides Corrin, Lucina's probably the most likely to go. But once again, they are an Echo, so it's easier to put them in. And they are another one of my more played characters, but I'm not going to be biased at all. I'm just going to give my honest opinions, no matter how much it hurts. Next is the 11 to 30% return, because I feel like those are the lowest characters. So, The first character I'm going to put in this tier is Wii Fit Trainer. They're probably going to get replaced by the Ring Fit series, but they're the only representative for Wii Fit, and Wii Fit was a popular series. So I think that they might have a chance to leave, might have a chance to stay, but I think that they're most likely going to get removed. Which I would say puts them at the bottom, but I would still feel like they're more likely to stay than the ones below, because once again, only a character of their franchise, and unless they just replace it with a Ring Fit character, then it just wouldn't make sense, and Wii Fit series was pretty popular. So, yeah. Next one in this tier is going to be Incineroar. Incineroar was not an expected contender for Smash. They were just added over Decidueye because there were already some Archer characters, but there wasn't really a wrestler. So that's why they got in, and we now see that Mimikyu was the most popular Gen 7 Pokemon. Incineroar wasn't even the one that was expected. We already have a Fire type and a Dark type starter inside of Smash, both of which are more popular than Incineroar. And don't get me wrong, I love Incineroar as a Pokemon. They're like my third favorite starter of all time, and one of my first Pokemon. And some of my first Pokemon games were the Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Moon games. But Incineroar the only unique thing about them is their moveset. They aren't very popular, and they're still relevant because of competitive, but that's not really for a good reason. So I would say Incineroar's in a lot of danger here. They aren't very fun to play as either, so yeah. If they're able to find a different wrestler character that would fit into Smash, then that would seal Incineroar's grave. But for now, I think they have a bit of a chance of returning, just not the highest. I could expect something to replace Incineroar. I feel like a Pokemon that could replace them is Meowscarada. Meowscarada is a lot more popular, another Dark type, and would probably be more interesting to play as. So, yeah. Okay, so the next character that I'm going to put in this tier is Min. Min is the sole representative of their franchise's ARMS. After it was revealed that an ARMS character was going to be added, everyone figured out that it was going to be Min, so they weren't really an exciting add. They're annoying to play as, they're annoying to play against. No one likes Min in Smash, and Nintendo was expecting ARMS to be a new hit like Splatoon was on the Wii U. But it just ended up not being that. It was a total flop. No one likes Min inside of Smash, but they are the only representative of their franchise. If they were to bring ARMS back for another game, hoping that it would work, I feel like Min would probably be a contender to stay, but with how ARMS sold compared to how everything else on the Switch sold, I see it as very unlikely that they make another ARMS game. And very unlikely that they put Min into the next Smash game. Once again, they are the only representative of their franchise, and they might try to bring them back, but I think it doesn't look very good for Min. Next one in this tier. You might think we're done with Fire Emblem characters, but no, it's Chrom. Like I said when mentioning Lucina, Chrom is a more popular character, but they're like an echo of Roy, but have moves based on Ike. I don't see a reason why Chrom needs to stay, but as an echo, they might have a chance to stay because it could be easier, but I wouldn't say that I'm confident in Chrom's return. The last one for the 11 to 30% return tier that I am going to put is Zero Suit Samus. Zero Suit Samus originally was just what Samus became in their final stock, I believe, and they aren't really a necessary character per se. They are unique, and yeah, but I feel like they could just be part of Samus's final smash, or they could bring back how it was before, or maybe have a switching gimmick like there used to be like Zelda into Sheik, where Samus could just take off their suit or something. I don't see Zero Suit Samus as an extremely likely stay, but I think that they have a somewhat decent chance of staying, so I'm gonna just put them there. Next is a 31 to 49% tier, which is gonna be one of the smallest here. But yeah. So the first character who I want to put in this tier is Lucas. Lucas is a bit of a cult icon, but Mother 3 never released anywhere outside of Japan, and Mother / Earthbound is the most overrepresented franchise in Smash. It only had around 1.49 million sales and has 2 characters. The creators have decided themselves that they're less interesting than Ness. Originally, in one of the games, I forgot which one, Lucas was going to replace Ness, but they ended up not doing that. So, yeah, the Mother franchise is relevant in Japan, I do believe, but I don't think that it deserves to have more than one rep, but there is still a chance that Lucas stays. I just don't see it as extremely likely. The next character that I am going to put in this tier is Roy. Roy, once again, another Fire Emblem character, which is a pretty overrepresented franchise currently. I don't know much about Roy, so I'm just going to move on from here. And the last character which I'm going to put inside of this tier is Palutena. Palutena is a unique character, and I think it's cool, and they have a unique gimmick with their stage and the Palutena's guidance, but they don't really need her to be in a entire roster slot to do that. And Kid Icarus, for how it's sold, is overrepresented, so I mean, if it's fine for Splatoon having one character, then I feel like it's probably going to be fine for Kid Icarus. Next is the 50% return, which are what I consider to be the 50/50s. So, the first character I'm going to put in this tier is Toon Link. Toon Link, they could keep Young Link over Toon Link, but I don't see that as too likely. But at the same time, they could just remove both of them and just have Original Link be the only one. I don't see that as extremely likely, but it's a possibility, so that's where I'm going to put Tink. While we're on Legend of Zelda characters, let's mention Sheik. Sheik was originally just being able to get swapped with Zelda. Sheik isn't even that relevant anymore. They could probably just be replaced with Tetra, and I don't think anyone would really care that much. A ninja character is nice, but there's other ones like Greninja, which literally has ninja in its name. So, yeah. I feel like Sheik maybe being an echo of Zelda could work, or maybe an alternate costume, or a swappable character like they used to be. I feel like any of those could work, but yeah. The next character who I am going to add to this tier is Lucario. Lucario was a very popular Pokemon, but it isn't very relevant anymore. So I don't see it as very likely. They were kind of just a copy of Mewtwo, and when they replaced Mewtwo, everyone was upset. And once again, they're not very relevant anymore. They did have their own movie, but I just don't see Lucario as too likely of a return, but I'm going to put them around 50-50. The next character that I'm going to put in this tier is Daisy. Daisy was originally their own separate character, but now they're just an echo of Peach. And echoes aren't really necessary. It would be easier to keep Daisy in, though, because, yeah. And they were playable in Mario Wonder, but they haven't been possible to play as for a pretty long time outside of spin-offs. Daisy just isn't too relevant of a character, so I think they could be removed. On the topic of Mario princesses, we have Rosalina and Luma. Rosalina definitely has a unique gimmick with using the Luma in fighting, and when they were added, they were a core character to the Mario franchise, but as I said, Daisy was added to Mario Wonder while Rosalina wasn't. Nintendo seems to care less about Rosalina than they used to, and I feel like she could be removed. The sixth character that I'm going to add to this tier, or should I say characters, is the Ice Climbers. The Ice Climbers, once again, have a unique gimmick. But they only had one NES game years ago, and they're a cool retro representative, but unlike Pit and the Kid Icarus franchise, after being added to Smash, they didn't get another game. So I see them as around 50-50 because they don't need to be in Smash, but they're a unique character and they're kept relevant by Smash. So that's why I'm going to put them around the 50-50 range. Second last character that I'm going to put in this tier is Pyra and Mythra. They currently have a unique gimmick, once again, but as I've mentioned, it used to be on other characters and could easily be put on other characters. They are a very easy character to play, especially Mythra, but they already have Shulk for Xenoblade, who serves better as a mascot, even if he's kind of harder to play as. So I don't see Pyra and Mythra as a guaranteed stay. So that's why I'm putting them in the 50-50 range. The last character that I want to put in this tier is Jigglypuff. So Jigglypuff is one of the members of the original 12 from the original Smash 64, but Jigglypuff being added there was kinda as a joke character, and they were only really added to pad out the roster, and they were just a copy of Kirby. They were considering Clefairy, but they just added Jigglypuff because it's more easy to make them a copy of Kirby. People would probably be upset if Jigglypuff was removed, but not as upset as they used to be because, since they were added to they've almost been cut before. In Smash 4, I believe it was, they were going to be cut, but they ended up having extra time, which allowed them to add it after they were allowed to add Sonic into the game. So they've almost been cut before, which isn't making it look too good for them. And the only relevance that they've gotten recently is gaining the fairy type in Gen 6 and getting a paradox form. And a lot of Pokemon with paradox forms aren't in Smash, but it doesn't really hurt their chances, I would say, but they have the best opportunity to remove them now, I would say. I feel like I'm saying I would say a lot. Next, we're moving up to the 51 to 69% return. The first character that I'm going to put in this tier. Wait a second. Okay. The first character I'm going to put in this tier is Ridley. People wanted Ridley to be added to Smash for a while, and I feel like they won't go back out of spite, potentially, but they don't really get too much by having a Metroid villain in there. Ridley is probably the most iconic, I think, besides Metroids, which I guess are just enemies. But Ridley is like an actual boss-type character, but they used to just be a stage hazard, and they could always go back to doing that. I wouldn't say it's extremely likely, but they could still do it. So I don't think Ridley has the highest chances, but they might keep them. I feel like it's more likely that they keep them, but you never know. Next character I'm adding to this tier is Bowser Jr. Bowser Jr. is an iconic Mario character, and them having the Koopalings as alts is pretty cool. But Eggman, who I believe is a popular requested character as another representative for the Sonic franchise, could probably have a similar moveset. And I feel like Bowser Jr. wouldn't be hurt too much as a character if they were removed from Smash. I mean, you already have Bowser, so yeah. Next character going in this tier, Dark Samus. I'm pretty sure that the Metroid series is getting a renewed push, but Dark Samus is currently an Echo Fighter. I feel like they might become their own distinct character, but I don't feel like they're too necessary, but if Metroid becomes extra popular, then it would make a lot of sense for them to stay. The next one who I will add to this tier is Little Mac. Punch-Out hasn't had a game for really long, so I don't think that they necessarily need to stay, and they're also one of the weaker characters in the game, and once again, unique gimmick. But let's just move on. So, fifth character for this tier, or characters, Duck Hunt. Some consider them to be one of the most cuttable characters, but they have some legacy with being packaged along the original Super Mario Brothers, which was what really helped Nintendo get popular initially with the NES. But Duck Hunt hasn't had a game for several years, and most people consider them to be pretty cuttable, so I'm just going to put them there. Okay, the sixth character I'm going to add in here is Rob. or ROB if you're weird. Rob helped Nintendo in the video game Crash of Whatever, and is definitely more of a legacy pick, but couldn't find sales figures on this, so I don't know exactly how popular Rob was. But they're a pretty unique character, I think, for the 1,000th time. They're more of a legacy pick. I feel like it's more likely that they do stay, but out of retro characters, I wouldn't say they're the most likely to stay. The last character that I'm going to put in this tier. Last character I'm going to put in this tier is the one. Wait. Mii Sword Fighter. Mii Sword Fighter is the least unique of the Miis. There's a lot of other characters with a sword, but the Miis, they make Nintendo money. So, I think they're pretty easy to keep. I feel like Mii Sword Fighter is the least likely to stay because, once again, there's already a lot of Sword Fighter characters, and I see them as the least popular, at least from my view, and the least fun to play as. I feel like it's more likely than not that they stay, but out of the Miis, they're definitely the least likely to stay, at least in my opinion. Next, we go to the 70 to 89% returns, which has a few. Starting off with King K. Rool. King K. Rool was wanted to be added to Smash for a long time, and they're pretty fun to play as, but could be cut. They're definitely the most iconic Donkey Kong villain, but could be cut, but I feel like they shouldn't and wouldn't go back. So K. Rool, I feel like, is most likely going to stay. Then there's Byleth. Everyone was very upset when Byleth was added as a DLC character. And when I mean very, I mean very. Like, death threats. Byleth, I feel like, is one of the more likely Fire Emblem characters to stay, but they're pretty cuttable. Next character that I'm going to put in this tier is Falco. Falco is the less popular Star Fox member. I personally find them more fun to play as, but it's possible that they put Star Fox down to one representative, and Falco is definitely more likely to be cut than Fox. And they're very similar characters, so I don't think Falco is very necessary. The next character in this tier, I'm saying that a lot, aren't I? I don't know. Mr. Game & Watch. Mr. Game & Watch represents Nintendo's first handheld console, and I feel like it's pretty likely that they stay, probably the most likely retro character to return, but there hasn't been a Game & Watch game in a very long time, and the Switch is like 27,000 times more capable than Game & Watch, and it's a bit weird how they're just a 2D character amidst a bunch of three-dimensional characters. They're pretty unique, but could be cut. Next one I'm going to put in this tier is Robin. Robin represents Fire Emblem Awakening, which was the game which saved the series, so I feel like out of the Fire Emblem characters, Robin is probably one of the ones which deserves to stay the most, but once again, could be cut. And I tried to not have there be too many characters in each tier, so that's why they aren't in a tier above. The only one which I let be full was the guaranteed tier. I mean, the 99.9% tier. Sorry. Okay. Also going in this tier is going to be Mii Gunner. Mii Gunner is my second most played character, and I like playing as them, and they're my favorite one of the Miis, but if only one of the Miis stays, it's most certainly going to be the Brawler. I feel like most likely all of them are going to stay, but if they put it down to one, then I feel like the Brawler's staying, but I definitely consider the Gunner to be more likely to stay than the Sword Fighter, which is why I'm putting them in this tier. And once again, one of my most played characters, I like playing as them. So I want them to stay. Given that Youngling is almost certainly going to be removed. So, next character is Mewtwo. Everyone was really upset when Mewtwo was removed before, but they serve as a bit of a boss type character, and there's already a lot of Gen 1 Pokemon in there. I don't see Mewtwo as the most likely Pokemon to stay. They most likely will stay because they know fans would be upset, and Nintendo has never shied away from a bunch of Gen 1 representation, so I feel like Mewtwo has a high chance of staying, but there's a significant chance that they're removed. Okay, let's see. Okay. 2 more characters for this tier. The next one that I'm putting is... Where are they? Am I just blind? The answer is yes, but okay. The next one is Meta Knight. Meta Knight has a good legacy in Smash with being overpowered in Brawl, and unlike Bayonetta, people actually seem to look back somewhat fondly on that. And they are a liked character, but out of the Kirby characters in Smash, they're definitely the most likely one to go. So I'm going to be putting them here. And the last character which I'm going to put in this tier, Ness. As I mentioned earlier with Lucas, they were almost cut in favor of Lucas for one of the games. And they have one of the least popular franchises, which is in Smash, which definitely doesn't help their case. They are a member of the original 12, and people would likely be upset if they were removed, and they are iconic to Smash and have a good Smash legacy, but out of the original 12, they're the second most likely to go, in my opinion. Next is the 90 to 99% return. These are the ones which have a small chance of being removed, but I think it's definitely very likely that they stay. The first character who I'm adding to this tier is Diddy Kong. Diddy Kong, I don't know. I mean, they did have Diddy Kong Racing a long time ago, and they are a pretty interesting character. But something I think might be interesting is if hypothetically the Ice Climbers were cut, they made Diddy Kong fight alongside Dixie Kong like they originally were going to do, which I think would be cool to have as a character. So, yeah. Next one that I'm going to add in this tier is Pit. I see it as very unlikely that they cut all 3 Kid Icarus characters, but it's one of the less popular franchises. I think it's most likely that Pit stays, but there is a chance that they completely remove the series from Smash. Or maybe they decide to keep Palutena as the sole representative of it. It's unlikely, but you never know. The next character, which I'm going to place in this tier, is Captain Falcon. Captain Falcon's moves were, like, completely made up for Smash. And F-Zero wasn't the most popular franchise, but they were a member of the original 12, and I feel like I see people liking their inclusion inside of Smash. And unlike Ness and Jigglypuff, I don't think they've ever been considered to be cut, but Captain Falcon is definitely the 3rd most likely character of the original 12 to be cut. And I feel like is the 3rd one, which actually has a somewhat significant chance of being removed. Most likely staying, but once again, could be cut. The next character I'm going to place in this tier is Ganondorf. Ganondorf is a liked character in Smash, but he's the worst one. His moves were originally stolen from Captain Falcon. The Legend of Zelda series, while popular, has a lot of characters in it. They're most likely going to keep Ganon. He is an iconic Zelda character and like a member of the core trio. So I think Ganondorf is probably going to stay, but there's a small chance that he's removed. The next characters I'm going to place in this tier are Pokemon Trainer, Squirtle, and Ivysaur. So I'm just putting these ones here because they have been cut before, given it was because of limitations with the 3DS, but it could happen again. They're most likely staying in Pokemon Trainers, just going to remain as they are, but they could just cut it down to solely Charizard. Yeah. Anyway, the next one who I'm going to put in this tier is Villager. Isabelle is definitely the more iconic Animal Crossing character in the franchise in Smash, but Villager has been in Smash for longer and is a unique character. They were going to be added sooner, but they weren't because they didn't know how they were going to be, and their moveset is a reference to the balloon fighting games from a long time ago, because Balloon Fighter was originally contended to be added, so them being in kind of represents them. And Animal Crossing is a popular franchise, and I feel like it deserves at least 2 reps, and maybe even adding another like Tom Nook. But if they were to cut an Animal Crossing character, Villager I personally see as the more likely of the 2, but they most likely aren't going to. So the second last character in this tier is Ike. Ike is a popular Fire Emblem character, I believe, and I feel like out of the Fire Emblem cast, they're one of the more likely ones to stay. Don't have anything else to elaborate. The last one I'm putting here is Shulk. Xenoblade is popular enough, and I feel like most likely it will have Shulk be kept, but there's currently 2 characters. I feel like it's unlikely that they cut both of them, and Pyra and Mithra I think are only a 50-50 in the first place. They could keep Pyra and Mithra over Shulk. I don't see it as too likely, or they could just keep both. There's a small chance that Shulk is removed, but I don't see it as very likely, once again. So, let's get to the end of this. Let's start off with the guaranteed, which are Mario, Donkey Kong, Link, Samus, Yoshi, Kirby, Fox, and Pikachu. The reason I've picked specifically these 8 is that they all represent a popular Nintendo franchise, and they're also the 8 characters that you get to start off with in Smash Ultimate, and they've been in every single Smash game without being considered to be removed for any of them, so I think they're almost certainly going to be in Smash 6. If any of them are removed, I would be very surprised. I feel like it's basically a guarantee that they're added. Next is the 99.9%, which are the characters I see as very likely just, I don't know. Luigi and Peach, both are very iconic Mario characters, and they've been in for a while. Luigi's been in here since the very first Smash game, and Peach has been here since the second. Neither of them have been cut at any time. Likely going to stay. King Dedede and Bowser, the most iconic villains from their franchises. Almost definitely going to stay. Then Zelda, the Legend of Zelda franchise is named after her. She's been in here since the second game. Likely going to stay. Charizard. Almost definitely is going to be part of Pokemon Trainer, but when Pokemon Trainer was removed and just one Pokemon was kept in Smash 4 due to 3DS limitations, Charizard was kept because Charizard is the most popular. Next, Olimar. They're like the least liked character to play as in the entire game, but Pikmin is a popular enough franchise and definitely deserves a representative, and Olimar serves as a good one, I would say. Greninja. Unlike Lucario, they've actually remained relevant and are still one of the most popular Pokemon in the entire thing. Where? I'm blind. Mii Brawler. The Miis are very iconic characters, and Mii Brawlers is the most likely of them to stay. They're most likely all going to stay, but almost definitely Mii Brawler will stay. If all of them are removed, I would be extremely surprised. And they do represent the entire Wii series, which has a lot of sales, so yeah. And also, they get Nintendo money, so obviously they want them to stay. Next is Inkling. Splatoon is the most successful new franchise from Nintendo from the past whatever years. So Inkling is definitely likely to stay, and with how popular their games are, it might even be likely that they could get another character from the series. Next is Isabelle. Isabelle is the more iconic of... Isabelle is the more iconic of the Animal Crossing characters, in my opinion, and I see it as likely that she stays. Next is Marth. Marth basically serves as the mascot for Fire Emblem, so he likely stays. Wario. If he was just being considered a part of the Mario franchise, he might be lower, but he's considered to be representing his own Wario franchise, so I feel like it's likely that he remains in. Next, Sonic, one of the most iconic gaming characters of all time, and Sega is now owned by Nintendo, most certainly is going to stay in. Bayonetta, another Sega character. They faked it that she was the most wanted character for Smash 4. She most likely is going to stay. Now, let's get into the third-party characters, the thing you've all been waiting for. Ignore Pyro and Mithra. Just ignore them. Okay, starting off with the screwed third-party, I'm going to put Kent and Richter. They aren't really necessary to stay. They are already Echo Fighters. They could be easier to keep, but I feel like they are the most likely third-party characters to be cut. There's also Terry. Final Fury, their most recent game was a flop. I couldn't even find sales data on it when I was researching the sales for all the games. So I'm pretty sure that people didn't even recognize Terry when he was revealed to be added into Smash, which definitely doesn't help. I feel like he is significantly more likely than Richter and Ken to stay, but I don't say he's necessarily safe. So, yeah. Moving on to might be cut. First is Sephiroth. Sephiroth's an iconic character, but there's already another Final Fantasy character with Cloud. And they aren't really getting much from having a Final Fantasy villain in the game. So they could be cut. Then there's Kazuya. Kazuya's one of the more annoying characters to play against, I believe. And Tekken was a pretty successful franchise. I think it's pretty likely that Kazuya stays, but I wouldn't say it's guaranteed, even if the deal works out. Then there's Snake. Snake's been cut before, simple as that. And they're also one of the most OP characters in the game. So, yeah. Simon. Once again, Castlevania is a popular franchise. I don't think it's very likely that they cut both characters in it, but I wouldn't say that Simon is a guarantee. Banjo and Kazooie, they're already somewhat of a legacy pick. I don't see them as extremely likely, but I feel like they might keep them if it works out. Then, looking cool, Joker! Persona is one of the less successful third-party franchises, I'm pretty sure. But people were super excited when Joker was revealed to be the first DLC character. So I think it's pretty likely that Joker is to stay. Then there's Mega Man, which is once again sort of a legacy pick. But I feel like Mega Man most likely stays, but has a chance of being removed. If the deal works, there's Ryu. Street Fighter is iconic. Cloud. Final Fantasy is iconic. Hero. Dragon Quest is very popular in Japan. Minecraft. Minecraft is very popular. Very. Sora. Sora is literally the most requested character to be added to the game. And Kingdom Hearts was pretty popular. And then, lastly, Pac-Man. With Square Enix's involvement on the Smash games, and Pac-Man being one of the most iconic Square Enix characters, I see it as more likely that Pac-Man stays. And I feel like Pac-Man is basically guaranteed to come back for the next game, but you never know. Nintendo and Square Enix could become rivals, and they refuse to add Pac-Man back, even if Square Enix lets them. But, yeah, this is my full list. Make sure to remember this. It will be on the test. Super Smash Bros. Do-do-do-do-do. Super Smash Bros. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Super Smash Bros. What if we made Super Smash Bros? Like Smash Bros, but soup. Sounds like an amazing idea to me.